Hello, I'm Wendy Brickman of Brickman Marketing, host of the monthly Brickman Banter Show. Today is my very special guest. I'm pleased to welcome James Perry. He's the Executive Director of the Monterey County Historical Society. Welcome, James.
Thank you for having me, Wendy.
It's a pleasure. It's great to get to know you, and our viewers will get to know you now too.
Yes.
So tell us about your very interesting background and your distinguished career.
Well, of course, I was raised in Monterey County, and from a very early age, I'd always been interested in the most compelling history of not only California, but really where history as I know it to be actually started right here in our region, in our county. So, and of course, growing up, seeing images that Pat Hathaway historical images that Pat Hathaway, who was a mentor of mine, would provide to the Monterey Herald with little historical vignettes.
Right.
Growing up, seeing those was yet another inspiration for me. So it just seemed to be a very natural forward course for me to honor all of those who really made sacrifices. All of the various different cultures who came here made many sacrifices, gave their talents in order to create the county that we enjoy today.
And it's just a peculiarly very historic county. And it's like an onion. I keep unwrapping and learning more and more and more. And I urge our viewers to do the same. It's just fascinating, and all the different cultures and layers. And so your organization preserves that, which is, if you don't preserve it, or if you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it.
You're doomed to repeat it.
Right.
And so one of the things that I would very much love for people to take away from this interview is, again, the fact that the infusion of various cultures in our region through the centuries has made it possible for us to enjoy what we do today. If it was just one culture or another, it would be woefully lacking, in my opinion. I mean,
It's a
again,
tapestry.
it truly is, and
Yeah.
you can see it all around you in our
Yes.
various towns, in our cities, in our fields, very much so.
In our architecture.
Absolutely.
So you brought a PowerPoint, so let's have you share the screen.
All right.
And because part of our history learning it is the visuals are so fascinating, and coming to visit you at the Monterey County Historical Society in Salinas off Davis Road is a joy, and we'll talk more about it, but there we go.
Here we go. Let me just, all right. Now.
Perfect.
So please allow me to preface before I get into this, the fact that I first arrived at the Monterey County Historical Society. I presented myself the day after I turned 16 in May of 1990. And so I've been involved with the Historical Society in one capacity or another for 31 years. I was even of council during the times that I was actually living in Alaska. I was in Alaska twice, and so, but even far away, I was still of council. So
we're lucky to have you.
Oh, well, for me, it's a privilege. It's a privilege. There's not a day that goes by that I do not take pause and remember all of the old time people that I first came upon, who mentored me, who had patience with me through the times, through the years. And, you know, they're no longer there. And, you know, I celebrate their memory and honor their memory by preserving everything that they left behind. So that is,
right.
That's what keeps me going. So Monterey County Historical Society, I would like to just read this. History is fragile, memories fade. Historians serve best when they preserve yesterday. Today, tomorrow is often too late.
Right.
Now, this mantra was stated at a meeting in 1933 December in Salinas, and it caused quite a stir among a group of old timers there in preserving, in what they knew in 1933, preserving old Monterey County. So who said this mantra has been lost to time, but almost 90 years later, you know, it still drives to the point. So now,
what year was the Historical Society founded?
it was founded December the 26th, 1933.
During the Depression.
Absolutely. However, what's very interesting, I can go into another history lesson about the Depression, but during the Depression, Salinas, as it were, was one of the wealthiest cities per capita in the entire United States. This really had to do with the agricultural product output going out. So anyway.
Interesting. Yeah.
So just, you know, moving on from 1933 through 1965, the administration of the Historical Society had really been carried out at various homes, secretary of the board, president of the board, their own private residences. Now, the growing collection of the Monterey County Historical Society came to be stored in those days in various spare rooms, attics, basements, garages, warehouses. And so really it wasn't until 1965 with the pilot project for the Monterey County Historical Society, the pilot project known as the Salinas Valley Museum. And of course, here we are. This was our first project, and we opened this in 1965. And this small building that you see here is actually, it's still there. It's located in front of the Salinas Rodeo grounds, and it presently serves as the Salinas Rodeo Museum. So this was our first opportunity to begin showcasing our various acquisitions that we've collected thus far since 1933. Here's the interior. So this was otherwise known as the Cottage Museum. And of course, we inhabited this building until we acquired the Baranda Adobe History Center campus in 1972. So before I get into the history on that, I want to show you how our campus looks today upon entering through our front gates. You'll see in the forefront, you'll see in that cage, that's the half track, which is the World War II monument honoring those who served and sacrificed on the Bataan Peninsula in the Philippines. And of course, you see the Victorian house, you see the little red Lagunita schoolhouse, and you see also a little bit of the oldest home in the Salinas Valley, the Jose Eusebio Baranda Adobe. And then of course, the yellow building in the background is our future museum. Lagunita Schoolhouse with the William Weeks Victorian house, which is under restoration right now. Here's another Bataan Memorial again. We dedicated that in April of 2006. Yes.
Is that a gun or what is that? I mean, a cannon? I can't tell. What is it?
Oh, you mean this one right here?
Yes.
Oh, yes. So
it's a tank.
That's a half-track tank. Yes.
Okay, half-track tank.
Yes. So the interesting about that, I'll go into it because I have more information as we move along.
Okay.
Here is, we do actually have plans to construct a 10,000 square foot 19th century California agricultural implement barn on the site. Here are a few specimens that we have resident out among the grounds there. We also have plans to for a Victorian era garden. Actually, it will be botanical. It will be extensive botanical gardens
Right.
that will be framed in, or our centerpiece will be this memorial fountain that I had a vision for about 25 years ago, and shame on me, I really can't put too much on paper when it comes to drawing, but I had a draftsman come in and he was intrigued by my vision, so he put it down. So there we are.
Looks promising.
Absolutely, it will be. And then we have plans on integrating various exterior architectural elements throughout our Victorian botanical gardens, including thousands of bricks that were salvaged from the old Spreckles sugar refinery. They'll be used for pathways and waste planting boxes.
As a brickman, I'm very impartial to recycling bricks.
I like that. So our buildings. So when Jose Eusebio Baranda moved from Monterey, received a land grant from Governor Alvarado Street, Monterey, received a 6,600 acre land grant in 1839. That was still the Mexican Republic era. And so this land grant was actually known as Rancho Rinconada del San Juan, which roughly translates to quiet spot on the edge of the slough. So this really relates to what the landscape and ecology looked like. In those days, it was vastly different. When Jose Eusebio Baranda built his house, there were sloughs, waterways, lakes, ponds, very much looked like Elkhorn Slough and Moss Landing. And then, of course, with the agricultural land reclamation projects of the 1870s, all of those bodies of waterways were subsequently filled in, therefore altering the ecology of that part of this part of Monterey, this part of the Salinas Valley.
Every picture, James, shows me the fog blowing in from the ocean, right? From the Monterey Bay.
From your neck of the woods to mine.
Yes, yeah,
yes,
that's right.
Of course.
Air
Anyway.
conditioning.
So this, by the way, what you're looking at, you're looking west, and all of this is deemed a permanent agricultural green belt.
Thank God.
The lands, yeah, most certainly, absolutely. So we'll never have to endure urban sprawl on this part of the Salinas Valley, at least. So
wonderful. And that's the west. Do we say that's west?
Yes, you're looking towards the west.
Yeah.
That's okay. And of course, this is Don Jose Eusebio Baranda, one of the sons of Manuel. Manuel's house is still there in Monterey on Baranda Lane. First house built outside of the Pueblo walls in 1817. And of course, this is his original cattle brand.
Oh, I like it.
Oh, yes. Well, interesting story about that. About 3 weeks into my tenure there in late May of 1990, I was in the manger doing some sweeping, and I swiveled around and the lip of my foot caught upon one of these floorboards, and the floorboard lifted up, and I found a small cache of artifacts, wow, including the original cattle brand. That's a very interesting story. Yes.
Wow. Where's the other Baranda adobe? In Monterey, did you say?
Oh, yes, it is. So the other Baranda adobe, it's in private hands, and of course that adobe, it is on Baranda Lane, and so that's more or less right above the old Myrick photography studio.
Myrick, yeah, right. Near MPC, Monterey Peninsula College, around there.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah, I like that area. Beautiful.
Lower Mesa, yeah.
Right.
So here we're looking at the front of our adobe, Don Jose Eusebio Baranda's adobe, which of course I might add is the oldest residence in the Salinas Valley at this point, in this part of the Salinas Valley.
Is that
And this,
Monterey architectural style?
thank you very much. Yes, it is actually original Monterey colonial architectural style. And that's the East Coast influence fused together with the existing California adobe architecture. Those two distinct architectural styles, of course, birthed Monterey colonial architecture.
Because I love the verandas. They have overhanging verandas for the weather.
Yes, absolutely. Very much so. And so here we are in 2018.
Wow.
Well over a century later. Not much has changed, but the world certainly has. And of course, the house underwent quite a few boundaries of the property, underwent quite a few changes, but the house abided. And as you'll see, as time went on, the house did actually go under a slow and genteel decline. Now, I must say that the Baranda family actually ended up selling their property and the lands that remained in 1946. But the matriarch of the family, Marguerite Wilson, who you see on the right-hand side, Marguerite, she decided that she would gift the Baranda adobe and 5 acres to the Monterey County Historical Society for the purposes of long-term preservation. Marguerite was so impressed with the historicity of the house that she wouldn't allow anyone to live in it. And of course, some people thought that a little bit odd, but in 1972, when the Historical Society acquired the property, one of the first things that we brought in, one of the first things that we did was bring in an architectural historian from the Smithsonian Institution. And after much research, this architectural historian proclaimed the house to be one of the most well-preserved, historically intact structures of its kind in California.
Wow.
So, and here they are, the 2 board members and Marguerite accepting the plaque. Of course, this is May the 18th, 1974, putting the house on the California Landmarks List, number 870. So the Historical Society has been from very, very early on, was really opened up its gates to the public, embracing the public. You know, again, it was all about trying to instill not only a sense of urgency with regard to preserving what we have, but as time went on, you know, continuing to be more vigilant and doing one's best in preserving not only artifacts and documents and photographs, but people's memories as well. The development of biographies, autobiographies, historical vignettes, and whatnot.
So the Marienda that I work on in the Memory Gardens, this is a different Marienda, correct?
Oh, yes. So throughout the 1970s, even up until 1994, I believe, we called them Mariendas. But then, of course, the board of directors in those days decided to change the name into a barbecue. So I'm thinking about going back to a Marienda myself.
But it'll confuse with our Marienda, I think.
Oh, you mean the Monterey History and Art Association Marienda?
Yes.
Oh, well.
Well, you could just preface yours by the Monterey County Historical Society Marienda, yes, and we're good to go.
Absolutely.
And Marienda is like a noon lunch or something. I forgot what it means.
More or less, yes, absolutely, yes, yes. So here you go in 1980. You see, I mean, again, you see how vibrant our barbecues were in those days. And oh, here's another picture of that plaque. 45 years later.
And it's on the property. Yeah.
It is. So here it is in 1974, 10 days after I was born. And then here we are now. Yes. So now I want to focus on the house itself Here is the back side of the house. You'll see the gable right in the center of it. Right above the back door here, there's another door, and that door into the attic, actually, which was the grain loft. Had to put the grain loft on top because rodents were and remain a nuisance in the valley, but it also served as sleeping quarters for the boys of the family. Here we
I
are.
imagine, do they have, James, do they have like rocking chairs underneath the?
Oh, no doubt. I'm certain, no doubt. During the hot weather and whatnot, of course, although they didn't really have to worry about hot weather because due to the thickness of the walls of the adobe, it stays very, very nice and delightfully cool in there on hot days.
That's good to remember.
Oh, yes, absolutely. So a couple of the features we have right behind the house, of course, is the Orno, which is the beehive oven, a mortar for processing food, and of course, an 80-million-year-old giant fossilized clam. Where
did that come from?
Well, it's always been on the property, and it evidences the fact that this whole area was underwater at one time. It's a very interesting specimen. Yes, absolutely.
Wow. And a horno is for baking bread or what?
Yes, baking bread and tortillas. Yes,
right.
Absolutely.
Do you use it? Does it function?
I remember the last time we used that. We used that in June of 1993. That was the day that we laid the foundation for our future museum. Yes. Cool. We don't use it now because, well, there are massive olive trees under it, and my insurance underwriter would just kill me if I even thought about that. So anyway.
Okay. Above it, there's olive trees above it.
Oh, yes.
Not under it. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Exactly. In fact,
I can see some bushes. Trees.
These two trees right here, shame on me, I should have taken better pictures. These olive trees were planted in 1946, and they were among the first ornamental olive trees to actually be planted here in our county, which is very interesting. Here's another interesting feature by the Orno, located by the Orno. This is a sandstone mortar grouping that was also unearthed on the property, Native American, obviously, which really does evidence the fact that Native Americans had been living here for 10,000 years prior to European contact. Again, this is a better view, grain loft on the second floor. Here's the back door. I'm going to bring you into the adobe. Yeah. This room is known as the Sala. So between 1994 and 1998, we worked with the Monterey Peninsula Committee of the National Society of the Colonial Dames of America.
Right.
And I worked with them for 4 years. Great group of women, just amazing. We worked very stealthily for 4 years in order to truly redevelop 1850s historical, again, a living history of the 1850s. We wanted to bring you back to the 1850s.
So quick question. So I'm getting you locked into the native daughters of the Golden West. What's the difference? And they are people who are born in California, basically, and love history and preserving it. And you will be speaking to the group soon. However, what is the colonial dames again? I forgot.
Yes, the colonial dames. These are women who trace their history back to East Coast, to colonial, to the colonial roots of our nation. Yes.
I see. So, sorry.
Oh, yes. Oh, no, that's fine.
No, it's fascinating to walk into this building, and I urge all the viewers to do this.
This is truly, truly amazing. I'll also, I'll follow up with you and give you a YouTube URL for a tour that I did last year.
I would love that.
Absolutely. So of course you see the bear here. I'll go back to that.
Yeah, the bear. There used to be a lot of bears.
We'll talk about the bear, yes.
Okay.
But now I want to bring you into the dining room. You know, again, a lot of hard work was done to develop 1850s and 1850s interior. So, and of course, including certain scientific. So for example, here's one point. Another thing that the Historical Society did in 1972 was bring in an archaeologist who did quite a bit of reconnaissance and excavation. As a result, the archaeologists located quite a few pieces of the certain particular china we call blue willow china. They're still making it. So when it came time for us to select the various specimens and artifacts that would go into each and every room, we really did we employed scientific fact and finding.
Nice.
So yes, absolutely. We were very intuitive about all of that.
Meticulous.
Absolutely. So here's the bedroom right here. Partial view of the bedroom. Yes.
Oh, he's cute. What a cute grizzly bear. Did he come around the valley, or Kodiak means Alaska?
So the Kodiak is a distant Kodiak grizzly. Kodiak brown really is a distant relative of the California grizzly. And so they get to be rather large. Now, you know, I wanted to bring this point up because, you know, again, the pioneers, the founding families, the Native Americans, the founding families and the pioneers of this area did not have it easy at all. A lot of people have a terrible tendency of romanticizing the past, when indeed it's not. For example, when you know that you're not at the top of the food chain, you live life very differently, knowing that you're not at the top of the food chain. Many people live like that still. I live like that when I live in Alaska. Absolutely.
Right, of course. Well, yeah. With that, we barely have a moment. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll continue talking with James Perry, Executive Director of the Monterey County Historical Society. And this is a great shot to take a break on. Let's take a break.
Today's Brickman Banter Show is presented by Wendy Brickman of Brickman Marketing. In 1990, Wendy Brickman moved to the Monterey Peninsula after a career in the entertainment industry in Los Angeles, including Paramount Pictures and studio instrument rentals. Since launching her award-winning marketing firm in Monterey, Wendy has helped hundreds of nonprofits and for-profits jumpstart success, locally, regionally, and nationally, through cost-effective PR, marketing, and social media campaigns and events. Wendy especially enjoys setting up strategic partnerships with her clients and other community members to create win-win relationships. The Brickman Banter Show features interviews with many local leaders and business owners who, like Wendy, are investing their time to make this community even more remarkable. For more information and archives of the Brickman Banter Show, go to www.brickmanmarketing.com.
Pickup truck, bale of hay in the back, and a border collie pup. Man, it's the tightest turn that I've ever been on. Maybe that's why they call it Highway 1. She opened up that bottle of wine, the sun shining bright in her hair. Been a lot of places before, don't think I've been anywhere quite like this.
Hello, welcome back to the Brickman Banter Show. Today I'm interviewing James Perry. He's the Executive Director of the Monterey County Historical Society. And we'll resume looking at this beautiful specimen of a Kodiak grizzly bear rug. Go ahead, James.
So of course, another interesting fact, that little factoid that a lot of people don't know, is there used to be a very interesting pastime in this region long ago, and we had bull and bear fights over at Monterey. And Jose Eusebio Baranda, of course, being very well known as a lumberman, obviously his extensive products from his rancho, but he was very well known for actually being the purveyor of bears for the bull and bear fights in Monterey. Interesting little fact.
We had a pub that didn't last too long, but it was called the Bull and the Bear. So they must
I
have,
remember the bull and bear.
yeah, they must have
Yes.
known. I wouldn't like to witness that. I don't think it sounds very bloody.
Well, just think about what the people in the 22nd century will think about us lot. I mean, WWF cage fighting, really?
Yeah.
So anyway,
Onward.
so in going back into the sala, or our main room, the main all-purpose entertaining room, you'll see images of the family through time, and of course we have a genealogical chart there as well. Here is part of the manger.
The manger.
The
What's a
manger is where they would have birthed animals. They would have birthed animals during the cold season. Yes, absolutely.
Very thoughtful.
So moving on to another highlight, another feature on the campus of the Historical Society is the William Weeks House. Now, William Weeks, of course, an immigrant, Prince Edward Island, Canada, came here to California and ended up becoming one of the finest architects in the history of the West, simply because he was one of the few architects that would be able to transition from Victorian architecture in all of its various different forms into Mission Revival or arts and crafts, and finally into Spanish or Mediterranean Revival. Many architects couldn't make this leap, but William Weeks was able to do so. Now, many of William Weeks's specimens, both residential and commercial, are still very much around. In fact, Monterey, you have the old Monterey Hotel on Alvarado Street, 1904. Many, again, many homes in Salinas, Santa Cruz, Watsonville, San Francisco. Many great commercial examples are still resident in San Francisco itself, actually. So
Longevity.
anyway, oh, very much so. Well, classical architecture really is amazing. Now,
And livable.
oh, very much so. Yeah. So this house that you're looking at was built in 1898, and the Historical Society saved it from being demolished. It was moved from central Salinas to the campus again in 1990, and it's been undergoing a very underwent a very slow restoration process until the last 3 years, and we've actually momentum is picking up now. Bear in mind, the Monterey County Historical Society, even though it's called so, is not a governmental entity, nor does it receive any funding from any local, regional, or federal governmental entities. We're a private nonprofit foundation that survives solely on grants and memberships and donations. We're a very Spartan, bare bones outfit with one employee, me, and a very dedicated team of volunteers, but I digress. So we were able to renew our partnership with the Monterey Peninsula Committee of the National Society of the Colonial Dames of America in order to restore this beautiful home. This gives you an idea of course, you'll see the interesting owl window feature.
Yes.
Okay. That's one of Weeks's trademarks, actually.
Okay.
He enjoyed, whimsical exterior architectural elements such as that. And you'll also note our selection of the quadricolor scheme of the house. You'll see the mustard on the bottom, the white, and then of course the light, the pale yellow, and then the oxblood red. We were very blessed with working with an individual who studied precisely that, color schemes on Victorian houses. And so this watercolor scheme is what we settled on. But in the meanwhile, there are so many things that need to be done. We put a new roof on it. The siding that you see right here, we're right in the middle of installing this siding all the way around the house. The front porch needs to be rebuilt. The back porch needs to be rebuilt. The phases are very straight phases of restoration. They're very straightforward. They're clearly articulated. We know exactly what we need to do. We need funding and volunteers. But in the meanwhile, I just
And
must
publicity. You need publicity.
Publicity, more and more, very, very much.
Well,
So
you'll be getting more publicity because I'm dedicated to what you're doing, and also you'll have an exhibit hopefully in the first part of 2022 at the Pacific Grove Arts Center, I hope. So
yeah, well, we're so very grateful that you worked with the folks over there in order to attain for us this venue. So thank you so much for that,
yeah.
Wendy, very much so. One of my my long-term what has been my long-term priorities is to bring as many people as I can from the Monterey Peninsula over to the Historical Society. Same thing with a lot of the people in southern Monterey County, vesting them as well into the Monterey County Historical Society. Because as I go on, you'll see we really are the custodians of the founding documents and the principal documents, civil and criminal, of the region from the 17th
Yeah, very important.
So I mean, but before I move on to the baton memorial, you see this picture of just amazing a set of silver we have. It just shows you we have all of the silver, the crystal, the china, the art, the finery, everything to furnish this house in high Victorian style, just waiting. So here is the World War II baton memorial, dedicated to our servicemen, served and sacrificed in the Philippines. 154 of them went, and less than half came back. So we dedicated this in April of 2006. And again, it honors those who served and sacrificed in order that we can enjoy our freedom. Another interesting restoration project that we have is the first wooden two-door jail from the Alisal district, what is now known as East Salinas. So this structure dates from 1870, and it's going to be a very interesting but very straightforward restoration project. Another interesting feature we have here is the labor bunkhouse, Filipino labor bunkhouse. Actually, this was another really nice specimen that was saved from being demolished. It was donated to us by the Bunn and Yuki families of the Salinas Valley, and it was brought over to the Historical Society, subsequently restored, and it allows us really to talk about the agricultural labor reform activities by the Filipinos throughout the 1930s. But our next phase on the interpretation of this structure will really to be more encompassing with regard and inclusive with regard to understanding all of those efforts of labor reform activities from the 30s through the present, as a matter of fact. Here is our Lagunita Schoolhouse that originally stood on San Juan Great Road, about 8 miles east from the Historical Society. That was saved in 1986, brought over to the Historical Society, and of course underwent a 2-year restoration. Here's the house on the move.
And I just saw that I just read that it was in the Steinbeck Red Pony book.
Yes, that's right. In the Red Pony, that's right. And then here we are with the restoration complete.
Yeah, it's fabulous to walk through. I really enjoyed that.
Did you? It's very authentic, yes.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't that different from my school in a sense, with those desks and everything and the chalkboard. I mean, what's incredible now is trying to teach students virtually has been a real challenge for the teachers and the parents. And there's something very valuable about being in a room together when feasible, and just living off the energy and, you know, dynamics of one another.
You know, being together, it's, you know, again, that is what helps us to infuse the knowledge into us. You know, there's nothing like, you know, again, being together, and my heart.
And asking questions, you know,
Absolutely.
Spontaneously.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, I know the kids the last few years are going to have a lot to make up for, but, you know, video documentaries, programs like this, I hope will be inspiring to some.
Absolutely. And again, you know, as we continue to open up, I very much look forward to, you know, returning school groups, you know,
Picnics. We want to have picnics, Native Daughters picnics.
I like it. I like it. I say
Yeah.
the more the merrier, really. And the campus is so well set up for that. So
I know.
So we have many artifacts on display in the schoolhouse that were actually used in one decade or another in the history and the existence of the schoolhouse. So now I want to briefly show you our future museum building. So again, not receiving any brick and mortar grants are virtually non-existent. They, you know, more or less always have been. So the Historical Society, in its wisdom, has never received any loans to build everything all at once. We build as we can afford it. So that's always been, you know, that's been my predecessor's philosophy, her predecessor's philosophy, and it's mine as well. So here's our building. 12,000.
That building is to be built, right?
Oh,
that's just
so
a rendering, or what?
Oh no, so this is the actual building itself.
Oh, okay.
So this is our future museum building, and
is it built?
Oh, it is. It is. That's right. So I remember very clearly we laid the foundation in June of 1993. A few years go by, we put up 3 walls and a roof. A few years more go by, we put insulation in, add additional improvements. Finally, by 2005, we had the building enclosed.
But now there's nothing in it?
Oh, there is. I'll show you. Oh, there is.
Okay.
So here, groundbreaking ceremony in September. Here we are laying the part of the foundation. Okay, so right now, 12,500 square feet of space is being used to store various artifacts. Again, 90 years of accumulation, everything from historical furniture to ceramics to, well, for example, here we are in 1898 Surrey buggy.
Right. Wow.
Used by the first female physician in southern Monterey County in Markham. Commercial coffee mill from 1873. An old fire hydrant from the Hotel Del Monte, now the Naval Postgraduate School from 1910. So there are 3 repositories in that building in our feature museum. One is the archaeological repository, the Briskini and Haversatt Archaeological Repository. Gary passed, he was a mentor of mine. He passed a few years back. Trudy, I'm grateful to say, is still very much involved with the Historical Society, being on my board of directors. This is their archaeological vault representing 45 years of archaeological excavation and collection, with a geographical area representing as far north as Point Año Nuevo and as far south as Mission La Primísima with down by Bonpac.
Wow.
Everything was thoroughly archived, thoroughly accessioned, cataloged, and archived. So much so they won a very prestigious award for that. Here are some of the larger archaeological specimens. And of course, we've also been designated by Caltrans as being the repository for archaeological materials during various work projects. Our other next repository would be our original vault, which was constructed in 1980. It's a 1,400 square foot vault. Here is a general view upon entry. Now, bear in mind, the records, we're the custodians of all civil and criminal records, the majority of civil and criminal records, not all of them, but the majority, dating all the way back to the 1770s through the 1930s. And I'll show you some of these record series. Among them, real and personal property assessment rolls from 1850 to 1890, voter registrations from the 1860s to the 19-teens. We have every single legal instrument used to probate every single estate from 1850 to 1912. We also have all civil and criminal case files produced in this county from 1850 to 1912. Now, a lot of people also don't realize the fact that what is now San Benito County used to be part of Monterey County until it became its own county in 1874. So in all actuality, we're the custodians of the earliest records for what is now San Benito County. We also house many very important corporate collections, including the Spreckels Sugar Company collection and the Union Ice Company collection. Spreckels Sugar Company, actually, I should just let you know why it's such an important collection. The fact that when Klaus Spreckels built his factory here in 1898, it would be, for the first 50 years of its existence, the largest sugar refinery of its kind in the world, right here in the Salinas Valley. And he also brought modern irrigation methods that, from which we started to experiment with other crops after the sugar beets came in. Lettuce, started, dabbled in broccoli, cauliflower, and look where we're at today. So anyway, I digress. So we're also the custodian of all naturalization documents for the Superior Court, representing all of those who became citizens here from 1850 to 1978. These are among just a few of the collections that we have. Of course, our collection also contains most papers published throughout our county, with editions dating back to the 1850s. We also have an amazing ethnographic collection comprising of baskets, arrowheads, Hawaiian taffeta cloths. Well, the ethnographic collection actually represents just about every single indigenous group from Central Coast and Valley all the way on up to Alaska and across to the Philippine and Hawaiian Islands. We had a small art collection until the latter part of 2019, when our art collection had quadrupled in size by our receiving a fairly significant collection known as the Carol Card Cobus collection. So our collection presently comprises of approximately 400 pieces.
Wow.
It's a smaller collection compared to many other associations and nonprofits on the peninsula, but what we do have is quite fine. Again, artifact collections are significant, approximately 40,000 specimens. Here's another interesting specimen, the seismograph from latter part of 1906 from the Spreckle Sugar Company.
Right. Need that.
Our image collection, over 100 images dating all the way back to the 1870s. Here's Colton Hall, by the way, in 1891 when Harrison was here. Always having to upgrade facilities. Had to upgrade our old fluorescent lighting installed in 1980. I upgraded that to LED lighting, much better for the artifacts. Here we are. Here's another view of the vault as we come in. So overcrowding demanded, in our first vault, demanded that we build a second archival repository, which we did. I was able, instead of actually, well, I should just say that originally the board of directors had thought we ought to just replicate our original cinder block vault that was built in 1980. Again, brick and mortar funding is very difficult to find. Years passed, 7 years passed. And so we started looking for alternative solutions. A local contractor actually approached us and said, we have an interesting alternative solution for you. Have a look at it. It was an heirloom seed storage vault. So Harris Moran Seed Company was leaving the valley at that time, had engaged them to disassemble and throw away all of these heirloom seed storage vaults. So I looked at the composition and building specs, and I came to the conclusion very early on that this would actually be a most ideal solution. In fact, even more so than our brick and mortar vault.
Right.
Due to the various nature of the materials lend themselves to complete encapsulation of the environment in them. So much so we experience negligible variation in temperature and humidity, and of course at absolutely no expense versus our original vault in 1980, built in 1980. We have to spend our expenditure associated with maintaining appropriate temperature and humidity runs us approximately, well, $400 to $600 a month.
So we have to wrap up in a couple minutes. I would like you to share with the viewers what you would like them to do and how you can be reached.
Well, very much so, because there's so much to be said, and shame on me. I am just.
We'll have you back. That's fine.
Very, very good. So please, tours are by appointment only.
Okay.
And please do reach out to me. I'm at 831-757-8085, and our hours of operation are Tuesdays through Fridays from 9 to 12 and 1 to 3. And I can also arrange for special Saturday tours as well.
Great. I was going to close down the slide share. Can we close down your slide share? Yes, and I urge viewers to go out, to be generous with donations, to join as a member, to get on the newsletter list. I assume you have an email list?
Yes, yes.
And the website again is what?
Oh, yes. So I would please have everyone email me at mchs@redshift.com.
And the website is?
Oh, shame on me. I don't have that right in front of me. No, I don't.
Okay. Well, just search for Monterey County Historical Society.
Please do. It comes right up. Yes.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being with us today, and good night.